Good morning. I call to order the meeting of the Board of Directors of Elephant Butte Irrigation District for Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. Director Sloan, would you lead us in the invocation?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, God, for this day. Thank you for this blessed morning, God. Please bring us together to talk about these issues that we have today. And please give us wisdom and guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Director Clayton, would you please lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I will note that I received a request from Dr. Dance for a 2-minute statement he would like to make to the board. I'm going to honor that request immediately following the introduction of guests. Because it is not an agenda, it is not an interactive discussion. We will hear what Dr. Shikadan says, but we can't ask him any questions. With that, we will get to introduction of guests.
Good morning, Mary Bosco's reclamation, El Paso office. Thank you.
James Rights, Open Irrigation District.
Very sick of that, cooperative.
Ward Michael Riley, OSC.
Mark Jamil, OSC.
Leo Barrett, EBID.
Carol Byron, EBID.
Ryan Strong, Interstate Street Commission.
Good morning, everyone present, and who do we have online this morning?
Good morning, Mr. President. We have Brenda Gonzalez. We have C. Owens, BLF, Delise Massale, iPhone Hernandez, which I believe is Mr. Steve Hernandez, J.R. Hennessy, Keith Dinos, and Vice President Ruby Rosa.
Very good. Thank you very much. I will note that Director Ruby Rosa is ill today, which is why he is attending via Zoom. So with that, Dr. Shikadan, you have the floor.
Thank you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jerry Shikadan, local citizen, former dean of the College of Agriculture, and have some concerns that I would like to present to the board. I'm going to read this. I've given copies to Gary and David and Greg and the secretary to pass out later. I'm going to read this so I don't get off distracted. Long-term climate change impacts on the Rio Grande watershed are unknown at this time, but something is coming. The infrastructure of Doñana County is rapidly changing. Is Elephant Butte Irrigation District ready to face these unknown changes? Elephant Butte has been serving farmers for about 100 years. In 1907, when Las Cruces was incorporated, approximately 300 citizens were here. Farming and ranching were the major industries at the time. Agriculture was king, but that has changed. Agriculture is still important, contributing $500 million in cash receipts to the local economy, but that fact does not just seem to be highly valued by those in charge of the city, county, state legislature, or congressional delegation. In 1930, 122 million were on the census, 25% were farmers. In 2019, the population was 329 million and 1% were farmers. It's even worse in Doñana County. The 2010 census population was reported at 210,000 and 1,282 were farmers, or only 0.6% were in production agriculture. In reality, very few residents know a farmer or a rancher by name. Few understand how food is produced and how it gets to their table. They rely on social media and information from groups that don't have production agriculture in their best interest. The same lack of understanding of EBID as to what your mission is and the value and importance of a locally administered organization supporting a major segment of the agriculture industry. The infrequent community interaction with EBID may be getting run off an irrigation canal by the local ditch rider, or an informal letter saying, or a formal letter saying they can't do something. The community may drive by the headquarters and see a big iron gate and a fence, and you're required to sign a roster before seeing anybody inside. Today, communication is very cold by having to communicate by phone or Zoom. For the above reasons, I'm concerned that there's a coming major rift and battle between urban agriculture community and the county over, in this county over water. As you know, we're already at war with Texas farmers over water allocation. The board is in process of hiring a new treasurer manager. I think it's imperative that the board question the candidates not only on his or her vision of running the EBID enterprise, but how they will deal with being a minority player in an urban community as the largest water user in southern New Mexico. Social media is coming for your water and how the district deals with the issues of water use in this valley. There was an opinion piece in the bulletin on Friday about how much perceived water waste is going on with flood irrigation. The community has reduced or conserved their water, but the district is perceived as not reducing their use or conserving water. Something to think about as the new manager and board look to the future. And I've also listed up some bullet points. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Schenkendens, and I want to express my appreciation for a lifetime supporting agriculture. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the board minutes for our June 25th board meeting. Are there additions or corrections to the minutes as written? Hearing none, I will accept the motion to approve the minutes of June 25th.
Motion so made.
That's good. I have a motion from, seconded by Mr. Garai to approve the minutes of June 25th. Any further discussion? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? A
Mr. President,
question from.
sorry,
Oh, there.
Mr. President, I wanted to make note, it's June 26th.
Thank you for correcting my misreading of that. June 26th. I brought glasses. The June 26th board minutes is what we were approving.
President.
The motion passes unanimously. Brings us to calendar events. Mr. Dressler.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is in your board book, page 7. We have scheduled a special board meeting closed session on July 15th. That'll be at 9 o'clock in the morning. Our Stormwater Coalition meetings are regularly scheduled on the third Thursday. This will be on the 18th. I'm not sure the location at this point. Our regular scheduled second monthly board meeting is scheduled for 9 o'clock on the 24th. And certainly, I want to bring attention to a 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock Lower Rio Grande Region 16 Water Planning Open House. I've set on your before you just a little brief outline of what this regional New Mexico's future water future is and what the open house will bring about. Certainly, I attended one of these early on meetings, and there was hardly any agricultural attendance, and that kind of disturbed me. It goes along with what Mr. Chickadance is speaking to. Lots of things are changing, and certainly I think it's important that we emphasize that agriculture should strongly participate in this regional planning process. The farmer's voice needs to be heard, and this is your opportunity. And Mr. President, we'd like to put something like this on our website so that we can bring attention to all of our farmers that they need to be actively involved with this regional planning. Otherwise, they're going to plan without you.
Mr. Where will that happen?
Excuse me?
Where will that take place?
I believe that, you know, maybe, I think.
Let me look real quick.
I put Mr. Serrano on the spot. Do you know the location of that meeting?
City Hall.
City Hall, that's correct.
Yes, City Hall.
It's, 2 of the rooms will be assigned, and when you go in there, they'll direct you to that location. Turning to August, right now, We have just a regular schedule, two scheduled board meetings, one on the 14th of August and the other one on the 28th. In between there, though, is a Bureau Reclamation Rio Grande Headwater Tour. Now, I've been on this before and it's quite a trip, but it's quite interesting and informative. You go to the headwaters and follow the Rio Grande all the way down. And it's quite enjoyable, quite interesting. However, it's very long and hard days. But I'm not quite sure of the entire agenda and where the tour starts, but it may require some travel time. But certainly for board members, I think it's important that you try to attend this. If you can't, there's some of you can. And again, it's the August 19th is maybe a drive up to Santa Fe Day. I'm not sure, again, the agenda. And it will be through the 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So keep that in mind. If you're interested, please let Naomi know. And she can then get you more information about the tour agenda. I really apologize. We haven't really seen the tour agenda, but yes, sir.
They just drive down the levee?
No, they start at the headwaters of 14,000 feet
Oh, wow.
at Wolf Creek Pass. And you
Wow.
follow the river down.
Okay, that's kind of neat.
Yeah, it's quite a tour. So with that said, I'll leave it to you all and we'll keep trying to give you updates as that agenda gets formulated, and then you can let us know what you want to do.
How far south?
It may come down to Elephant View Dam. I'm not quite sure. I don't know the agenda so far, but in the past, it's gone all the way to El Paso, the one time, you know. But 1 or 2 days, at least one huge long day in Alamosa and all the way down to Santa Fe. With that, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I will note that I am interested in attending the Rio Grande Headwaters Tour. I'm uncertain of my available this time, but I'm interested and would like further details. I as well encourage board members that are capable of taking that amount of time, the third week in August, to try to attend that. You'll get a much better understanding of the division of water in the Rio Grande through the Rio Grande Compact, as well as all of the works that have been built up in the last 120 years. It is worthwhile to do. Not to mention improved relationships with reclamation, because you'll spend a bunch of time with them over that period. Our meeting on the 24th, I will remind the board again, I will not be present for our June 24th board meeting. Director Rosa, are you expecting to be present for the June 24th board meeting?
In Washington State for WRA.
He is in Washington for NWRA, so,
You said June.
July, okay, thank you. The July 24th board meeting, Director Garai, that has the duty of shepherding the meeting. That shifts it to you. Are you available July 24th?
Yes, sir.
So, Director Garai will be presiding over the meeting on July 24th. I will also mention again to the ISC that regrettably I will not be present for their open house. Not because I don't want to attend, I simply am not available that day. Any other comments on the calendar? All right, you're ready.
Do you know what, Greg,
Call it.
Stormwater Coalition, I've never been to one of those meetings.
Mhm.
What is that like?
I have never been to one either,
What's the story with that, Gary?
Mr. Estier.
This coalition was created years ago, and it is a consortium of the Flood Control Commission, the county, the city, EBID, the Soil and Water Conservation Districts, Doniana, Kalio, Sierra County. It also has, representation from Hatch, representation from Anthony. And it's all focused on watershed management, stormwater protection, flood control. And, that organization recognized, they have a board, and it's recognized through the state legislature for moving and applying for grants. And so, it's a great opportunity to understand that everybody's trying to deal with the same issue of how we can improve our watersheds and how we can manage our flood control. So that's what the whole organization is about. And they do have a conference as well that's well attended. And they bring in speakers from Interstate Stream, the State Dam and Safety Bureau, different opportunities for people to understand what's going on in the watersheds.
One thing, when I was working with the NRCS as a trainee student, what we'd do, we'd go out, we'd look at a watershed, and what that watershed would be is all the water that's shed on that place that would come down to a certain spot. So it's our water that comes to us. It won't be like the divide, the water goes the other way.
Correct.
You understand that. So
Okay.
it's on our watershed, and so they have those different partners and people who have a vision about what that needs to look like and how it helps, like you said, to rank grants and things. NRCS, county water, and all those different people coming together, but it's about our watershed,
Okay.
where the water falls on us.
Mr. Etlinger.
Yes, and Director DK. We can get you the location. Again, it's usually at the county center over here off of 292 normally, but they do have them in Hatch. They do have them spread them out throughout the district. So we'll get you the location and we can let you know.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments regarding the calendar? Hearing none, that brings us to water resources. This is a device that I've got listed on the agenda, but I believe Dr. King has a presentation. Which of you would like to go first?
I'm gonna present for Dr. King as well. He's not
Okay.
gonna be able to attend, so if that's okay. I'll go through his,
Didn't even notice he wasn't here.
yeah, he's not here today, so.
Mr. Nervice.
Alrighty, I'll go through his presentation. He just sent that in the email. I believe you all received an email from Dr. King already. So. And we need to share this, all right? Okay, everybody see that all right? I can't see it all right. I gotta take off my seeing glasses to read, so. We're on our water supply update. I'll go through this real briefly. Like I said, I just received it from Dr. King, but it's pretty compact today as far as reports go. During this time of season, we're really just in operational mode, so there's not a whole lot to look at, but there are numbers that are active that we do monitor. Currently, the storage in Alpha Butte is 318,000, storage in Caballo, 39,000. Project storage total is 357,000. That's in the two reservoirs. Of course, there's some compact water that's probably a few weeks old still, but it's relatively close to what should be there. And ultimately, the usable project storage is at 351,000. And we have a pool of water there we consider not releasable for about 21,000. So far to date, we've released 366,000. And our seasonal supply was at 696,000. And we do have little less than 1,000 acre feet coming through, but that's starting to die off. I think we believe we had a monsoon event that contributed to that number there. So you're gonna see it drop off pretty drastically here next couple
Do
days.
you know what it was before that spike, Councilman?
We'll go through it and we'll see here on the graphs.
Thank you.
The next graph will show you. This will just kind of show you the instantaneous look at it right now. And of course, we are pretty much under, you know, the amount of water that's there at our queue. We're well below the average or the mean, excuse me, that you see what's coming in. So it's died off. You saw that we estimated about 1,000 acre feet. Well, if you look at this instantaneous one, which is a day later, closer to Yeah, it's still about 1,000 acre feet, I'm sorry, but yeah, so you can see that overall, on average, we're well below the median as far as what's inflows coming into the butte. This is the graph, to kind of show you what it was. Mr. Davier, kind of show you, see the spike. Yeah, you see where we're at normal here, and we got a little bit of that monsoon event, bringing some royal water. And that's what kind of spiked it up. But as you can see, we're on the way down, and wouldn't be surprised if it really pitters off. Of course, these monsoon popcorn clouds, I like to call it, storm events are just kind of sporadic. So it's really hard to gauge what they're going to do until they actually do it. And I mean, we have chances for rain the next couple days, but it's real sporadic. I'm sure you guys are all aware. It may hit across the street and not in your area, but so we're kind of watching that best we can. But that's what it looks like at this point.
You happen to know if that spike is from the late June spike at Otoe? Is that travel time or?
This doesn't seem like that. That's a whole lot of time. 8
Okay.
days seems to me. It's probably, part of it, but it's probably also mixed in with some royal water. And I believe some of the storms up in the Black Range, we did get some water into Caballo. I'm not sure in the amount, but we did get some in there that, helps us there as far as Caballo is concerned. But so some of those storms, we're not seeing a whole lot of it in our rain gauges, but hopefully we'll start to see that pretty soon, because that does help us in the end, getting water into Caballo from that runoff area. But we did have some events where it was running into Caballo. Of course, there's no snow, so nothing to look at but stars on this one. The prediction center, we all are aware of what's happening with the seasonal precipitation outlook. It's below normal. Of course, we're in what we're considered the monsoon season, so there are chances of rain. Now, whether they actually show up, it's just depends on, a lot of things, I guess, but we really haven't seen any impact to us to having to reduce any of our diversions or even try to capture anything, because it just hasn't been there enough runoff to do any of that stormwater. We did have some of the control dams, for instance, the ones up north, the Green and Royal that has a controlled structure there. It's probably releasing about 20 CFS, but it'll peter out within, 24 hours or so. So we are getting some of those in there, but not a whole lot that we can really do anything with, other than just be aware that, we're kind of taking a look at it. Temperatures are hot all the way through. We understand that. So we're just kind of doing our best to just meet the demand and keep things going there. So we like to count on the rain, but it's just too sporadic at this point to even make any good decisions. Again, just not justifying, but just kind of showing that where we're at as far as the drought's concerned, we are still in extreme drought in our area. It's crazy to say that when you see some of the flooding happening up there in Rio Doso and those kind of things. So it's kind of, when you look at these maps, it's hard to put it together sometimes when you actually do see some rain, but it's showing that we're in extreme drought, and that's the way we've been operating, trying to keep things efficient. So not too much to report as far as the outlook there. But in conclusion, since the last board meeting, I think we had about 14,000 acre feet coming into the Elephant Butte. Of course, still not looking at any more than 12-inch allotment. Just hasn't been enough to do anything with that there. And I guess the final numbers at the end of the season, that'll be more closer to where we end up. But 12 inches is where we're at, and I think we've been working with that pretty well. As far as the inflow, it's fading off. We may get some arroyo inflows. Other than that, you're not going to see anything else outside of that. Of course, the monsoon, you guys have all seen that. We get the alerts every day. There's going to be a wet week, and then we don't have anything. So we're just keeping an eye on it and keep moving along. Hopefully, some of those storms will give us some water up and where it matters. And that's all we're doing. But as far as the Dr. King weather report and that kind of thing, that's the conclusion of that. Is there any questions that I might be able to help you with?
Questions from the board on the water resources report? I will mention to the board that you received this in your emails yesterday. That will be the procedure, is that Dr. King will get these to you the day before. The presentation itself will be brief, focusing on where we're at in terms of storage and allocation. At further direction of the board to shorten up the presentation. If the board has feedback to change how we're doing it, please get that to myself or Director Garay, and we will work that at the Water Resources Committee.
Great.
Thank you very much, James.
All right.
We have seasonal update.
Yes, sir. Let me get out of this one, put up my report here. Try to zoom this up a little bit. I'll just give you what's happening today. Can everybody see that? Okay, sure, zoom it in some more. We're good. This is today's numbers. This is this morning. The amount of acres on order for the array are 1,981. We have an order of 280 CFS, which is about 555 acre feet. So far, our estimated diversion budget was 33,000, and we've so far on estimate up to date diverted 20,710. So the Leesburg, breaking that one down, 3,760 acres. We're pushing 310 CFS, about 615 acre feet per day. Our diversion budget was 51,000, and we've used 23,000 so far. On the east side, acres on order, 2,300 acres. The order right now is at 210 CFS, about 417 acre feet per day. Budget there was 26,000, and we've already diverted about 14,000 of that. The west side, 5,129 acres are on order. The order is about 500 CFS on order, close to 1,000 acre feet per day. The diversion budget for that area is 53,000. We've already diverted about 31,000. So as you can see, this is kind of where we're at and kind of where we're heading so far. This does include estimates for the month of July. So we're using at about 90,000 acre feet so far of our 100, and this here 164 is a diversion budget based off of 55%, but we know that we have 174 in there. So we've used about 90,000 of that water. It's available. And just to show this on a graphical, I've done just acres on demand for the past week or the first 10 days of July. We peaked out at about.
Can you please share your?
Was there a question
Nope.
from somebody online?
Anyone share your screen?
Share my
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, on the Zoom meeting, there's still the PowerPoint.
Okay, let me see if I need to switch that. Sorry about that.
Thank you for letting us know that, Director. Is that corrected?
Yes.
All right, sorry about that.
James, I got a.
Yes, sir.
question. On that, right down at Leesburg, obviously it's quite a bit lower percentage of what you budgeted versus what you estimated.
Mhm.
Is that just because, will that water get moved somewhere or why? I mean, it's quite a bit lower than everybody else. I'm just curious, is that just,
I mean, the budgeted acre feet. The fif-
yeah, I have it like at 45% basically that you like delivered or.
I guess I'm not understanding, but yeah, the budget is the amount of water right acres in that area, and that's where we come up with the amount. Let me just show.
Looks like the deliveries
I can-
maybe or.
Yeah, I can, James.
And I'll try to restate, if I just to correct. I'll try to help restate the question as I understand Director Slum said it. The percentage of the budget that has
Oh.
been diverted to date is lower on the Leesburg than it is on the other.
Okay, sorry about that. I
Yeah,
get you.
I can clarify all.
No, that's okay. That's all right. No, it's just the way the demand is. I mean, we haven't really gone too much lower than, well, we've actually been closer to the 280 CFS, but it just depends on the amount of acres that we're getting on there. I mean, the amount of orders as well. If we're not getting a whole lot of demand, it's gonna be less delivery on there. So we haven't really seen a big change or uptick. But some of these acres, and that's why these numbers here, the way we have them set up, they kind of intertwine with some southern acres and some northern acres. The one that always sticks out to me when you look at the old like numbers, if I just run a quick query, is like the east side. They probably have more acres there that are being used off of the west side. I mean, excuse me, the Leesburg as well. It should be incorporated in there. So there's some things that the numbers are kind of close, but that's really what that is.
But the array one, like it's pretty accurate because that's obviously.
Yeah, that's pretty much the 18,000, but there is some intertwining between the Leesburg, east side and west side. Actually, there's some,
Okay.
just some accounts that the way it's broken out. They kind of, well, the west side, not so much because it's on the whole other side of the river, but, most of the east side and Leesburg, they have some differences
What's
in
the
there.
capacity of the Leesburg system currently?
About 340 right now, and we're at 310. So
That's it.
Director Colquitt.
When is the season over?
we'll get to that here. I'll kind of show you.
Oh.
We're still on target with that.
Yeah.
And that's based off of the budgets that you see here, what we're doing. So I kind of want to show you what we've used so far of and then what we budgeted. So we're, we're still on target with August 15th, 17th, somewhere in that area. So I'll kind of show you that here in a second.
That's end of deliveries.
End of deliveries, correct?
August 18th, nothing comes out.
Yeah, we'll probably be shutting down a couple days before that to get to actually zero.
Okay.
Is really how that kind of works out. Just depends on the demand. I mean, that's the other thing. Like Mr. Sloan asked, it just depends on demand and how we're doing. I mean, we're staying at an even trek, but the Leesburg also incorporates a lot of the flat rates too. There's also a lot of city property that doesn't irrigate. So there's a lot of land in there that will never order water. And that kind of reflects that as well. So you'll see a lot of that, especially the Leesburg, because it runs through the city of Las Cruces. And so that's some of that too, you have to look at. So I just put acres on demand for the last, or the first 10 days of the month. We did knock down quite a few acres going into the holiday weekend. We had a peak demand of about 9,700 acres on demand. We've creeped up and we had a peak demand of 14,000 here on July 8th, but we've since kind of been knocking those down. And as I reported in the last meeting, we're usually around 12,000 acres, somewhere around there. We did have that huge spike early on in the season, which was close to 20,000 acres. You can see now we're getting closer to normal as far as operating levels. So we're keeping those acres down. You'll see them drop off and then they'll just come back up just as the demand picks up and different crops are in the rotations. We did finish a cotton run, obviously, so that was kind of incorporated in the June numbers. So now we're kind of waiting on that next one to pick up. We did have one flat rate weekend. We went off pretty decent, not too many issues there. Again, we estimate around here getting about 2,800 acres, flat raters, diverted about 1,400 acre feet, and that's just at a flat 6-inch charge, assuming that everybody took the water they were ordered there. I was going to be happy to report we didn't have any ditch breaks, but we had one yesterday on the Rio Rancho. It was a gopher hole. It got a little too high on there, and it went onto a pecan field. They've already since repaired it, and we're back in operation delivering water there, so it wasn't too bad as far as that's concerned. It probably irrigated about 10 acres of land, not a whole lot of damage. It was a high gopher, but still, we had one. Other than that, no other ones in other areas except for some gopher holes that they're not deemed too bad, but we were able to contain them. So this here, the June summary, this is the actual numbers that we do report as far as EBID charges. Just to give you an idea of what we did for the summary of June as far as deliveries. Again, the array, when I say deliveries, these are actual irrigations. So we delivered 940 irrigations to 17,201 acres. These are cumulative acres, so we just keep adding them up as they order. We delivered 6,581 acre feet. Diverted 15,273. Leesburg, 1,539 irrigations, 19,000 acres, 6,927 acre feet. Diversion 17,000. East side, about 468 acres, 11,000. Delivery about 4,900, and diversions 11,000 acre feet. West side 784. Deliveries, 20,000 acres, 8,800 acre feet delivery. Diversion was 23,000. So the total was 3,731 irrigations delivered to 67,000 acres. Delivery was 27,314. Diversion to get that delivery is 68,072. 68,000 is probably the highest we've had in a very long time, if not the highest. Amount of water that we diverted in 1 month. So, yes, sir.
What percentage is the delivery of the diversion, the bottom line? 40%?
Yes, the efficiency for the month of June was about 42%, 43%. You remember that whenever we do an allocation, we look at a 55% to divert. What happens in the beginning of any season, the first couple of weeks are just, the diversion is bad because we're priming up, we're filling up, getting everybody on track. Towards the end of the second week of June, we really started picking up, and diversions probably pop back up about 55%. But this June does incorporate the first 2 weeks that really drag everything down, including the flat rate weekend thrown in there too. So this did show about a 42% efficiency for the month.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Estimated deliveries to date, this is, 2 farms. And I went all the way up to this morning, so there's still quite a bit of irrigations going on, obviously, but so far, the month of June, we delivered, this is the acre feet, to the farmer, 27,000. To date, we're at 33,831. Outstanding, 50,000 acre feet. Now, the 50,000 acre feet can look alarming, but I think I did a query before I came in here that said, there's about 12,000 acres of people who haven't ordered. So there's no consumption, there's no orders. That's water that sits there. Some of it's City of Las Cruces. There's some huge accounts that have water in them. So that incorporates that 50,000. Remember when we were looking at that the other day, just to kind of give you an idea, that does incorporate those and not used. There's also in that 50,000, about 1,400 acre feet, that we haven't, received back from Texas yet as far as charging out any irrigations they're doing for us. So I still got to put that in there. As soon as we get those, it'll bring those numbers down and shoot the estimated delivery up. But that's kind of where we're at. That pretty much means we're on target. To me, when I'm seeing these numbers, we're gonna get there. So long as we get the demand in and we get the water to them, we're gonna meet the demand of the people who are actively farming. So I don't see an issue there. What I wanted to show, going back to your question, where we were, what I do is I plug in the data numbers that we've used. I got actuals here, and then I have the budgeted amount that we have. Right there. And it just kind of deducted based off of the 12 inches of where we're at. This is just our projection. After the month after the June 30th, I go into an estimated mode of where we're at. But you can see if we continue más o menos on the operations that we're doing now, we're targeting our area of August 16th, 15th, 16th of being out of diversion. So we're on track as far as that's concerned. Other than that, I don't believe I have anything else to add unless there's a question. Yes, sir.
So it looks like about 10% of the people haven't paid. So on that stuff there, what's gonna happen?
I don't know about the amount of not paid. It's just who haven't ordered water. She might, Karen might have a better number of people
If
who
they
haven't paid.
They can't order water, correct?
Right. Yeah, that's right. They can order. I'm not sure how many of those though are in that number of not paid. And I believe we did do a collection already. I'm not sure in the amount though, as far as that's concerned, but you're right there in that number.
Director Sloan, just clarification on that number you had, is that 10% of the account or 10% of the acreage?
Well, I just looked at Karen's cash flow and she said 90% of the constituents have paid.
Of the dollars, okay, so that can be a little confusing, not necessarily 10% of the acreage, but thank you.
Yeah.
Other comments or questions for Mr. Narvaez? A couple quick comments. So I'm on the tail of the Leesburg, and while the diversion is low, I will say that our order fill has been outstanding, probably as good as it has ever been. And so it's certainly, at least from my vantage point, seems like a demand issue and not a supply issue. If it's a supply issue, I have a hard time getting fill. I am uncertain why there's a reduction in demand there. It's not for me. I'm demanding plenty.
I'll say that unit 3B is, we haven't reduced from 100 CFS since the get-go. So we're kind of at a happy spot where I won't let him reduce it. Because the moment he reduces it, then we're behind. So he's playing with a full deck, as much as he can to try to meet demand. And we have enough bigger farmers in the area that can help move some of that water once he's done with the little ones. The issue with 3B is just so many tiny irrigations that, the help of the bigger farmers really keeps things in balance. So he can work with a few heads here and there, but still maintain a decent amount of water for the bigger farmers. 100 CFS. We could probably get to 120, but not too much more than that. We might not make it underneath the highway.
It's like pretty cool.
Yeah, there's some days where I'm kind of like, oh my goodness, but it's kind of rumbling on the ditch bank, but this is his second year and I'm proud of him. I think he's doing a good job. He's still working at it. We're still working through issues. I got a rookie guy at night, but they're doing their best there to try to really get a handle on 3B.
I've got nothing but positive feedback from our irrigator. And if you bring up the total diversion amount again, please. So I want to note, I've never seen 68,000 acre feet converted. That is the highest number I've ever seen. That includes the fact that June only has 30 days. That includes the fact that that's when we started at the season. So hats off to your team, James. It is harder to run the system in capacity than it is to just run it slow. And I appreciate them doing the difficult things to maximize the beneficial use of our water. Thank you very much. Other comments or questions for our water resources report? Hearing none, thank you very much, Mr. Nutley.
Thank you.
That brings us to general administrative. Ms. Byram Murray, starting with Ms. Byram.
Will you join segment major, please? Thank you, sir. Is there another place where the share button shows up?
I'm sorry? She's looking to share her screen.
And it-
Click on the Zoom museum at the bottom. The one right.
Don't put that.
cancel.
Share screen. at the bottom. You're there, Aaron. Just hit share screen.
Okay, sorry for the delay. Your cash report for June is about $300,000 in the bank, about 8.3 million in the investments with the state treasurers, local government investment pool. We do still have extra money compared to last year. We are still earning interest on our balances at the state treasurer's account better than we did last year. So all in all, we're doing well. We did receive the money from the property sale in June, even though it was reported sold. And then we paid 121 for the 2 pumps for the California lateral grant. And those are the only 2 not ordinary cash transactions. I stand for questions.
Questions on the cash report? On the increase in net cash equivalents, is it just timing on capital outlays?
There is some of that. There is also some of the higher income from the interest. And we are below budget in general, so.
Thank you. That is a significant increase in available cash year over year. Well, that's positive direction. Any other questions or comments on the cash report? Thank
Mr.
you,
President,
Mr.
one question.
Oh, Mr. Rovirosa.
Is part of the increase in cash position due to having a higher assessment?
I'm sure some of that is factored in there.
Very good.
Any other questions or comments on cash report? Again, thank you, Ms. Byron.
Okay. And I defer to Mr. Franzoy for the next item.
Did you want to just move to C, so you're going to present on C, and then I can.
That is fine. Go ahead and move to agenda item C, which is
So this
disposal of assets.
the disposal of assets. There was a list of assets in the in your information that we would like to dispose of, all except for one. I'd like to take off number 0711-0156. There was a clerical error and that asset is still being used. And we need to ask for the board's permission to dispose of these assets before we can do so. And the plan is to have these go to auction, but they don't necessarily have to go to this particular auction. They could, I suppose, go in for trade-in if you bought something.
Would you go again, the one that's taken off the list?
It is 0711-0156. It's the 2009 Big Tex equipment.
Steve, will you mute yourself, please?
Director Slav, why do we have a camp trailer?
Pardon?
I see it says we have a camp trailer.
I would.
I can answer that. Back after our flooding in 2006 and the hatch flood, we had people around the clock, trying to feed folks, trying to keep people going throughout that whole 2 or 3 weeks. So we've gone to Santa Fe, and a lot of these assets that are being disposed of are bought through federal surplus in Santa Fe, and that was a FEMA trailer that we picked up from a mobile office and placed to house and feed our employees while they were out there in these situations. We haven't had any more situations come up like that. We have used it a few times. We've had to run pumps 24/7 to keep water to do various projects. But it's costing money now to sit there, so we just decided it's time to let it go.
So, and I assume this list, this is obviously your recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Other questions on the asset list, the asset disposal list?
Are you replacing all this equipment or plan to, or
Well,
what?
some of it has been, I like to have the ace in the hole, so I like to replace it before I get rid of it. Someone thought, hands down, not happy, not being able to do it. So a lot of these have been replaced. Some of them, the majority of them are, like I said, they're purchased from Santa Fe, and we can run them into the ground. And so there's time to get rid of them. We use for them if you were wrecked, and maybe some old engines, some stuff like that. Cost to keep them going are way higher than the value. So it's time to get rid of them.
Mr. President, comment to comment?
Yeah, Mr. President.
One other avenue that we're pursuing is, and Karen kind of alluded to this, is a lease buyback program with our existing fleet vehicles. Enterprise is able to acquire those from us and sell those publicly. And so we'll get a little bit more bang for our buck, and we'll be meeting with the finance director to appraise our fleet vehicles and help us decide which ones that they should dispose of for us.
So if I understand that correctly, these are fleet vehicles that EBID currently owns that weren't acquired through that contract. They are also able to help us in liquidating those.
Our pre-existing assets, yes.
Excellent. My question has to do with, this is the asset list you're looking to, receive approval for disposal. You mentioned moving them to auction, which is the disposal means that I'm most accustomed to. Other than the alternative option that Mr. Franzoy mentioned, are there any other ways that these are being disposed of?
The procurement code pretty much says that you can give them or sell them to other governments. You can give them, sell them to other governmental entities like tribes. But other than that, you're kind of limited to how you could dispose of them. You have to offer them to the public. And a public auction is the easiest way to do that. And we do have a contract with Gov Deals, which is our online auction software. We did that a few years ago, and it seemed to work pretty well.
Any other questions? Mr. Colquitt?
Charlie Dickerson couldn't handle this. We have a big day here and people come in, out and buy. He's cool.
I can answer that. He can, except we would have to transport all our assets there and back, and it makes it a little bit cumbersome to
Where's there at?
from our yards, various yards.
We could have picked one spot and take it all there.
I'm sorry, I'm. I understand the
Well,
question.
If I may,
Mr. Barrett,
we did that for years. That's how we did our,
Really?
yes, we would load everything up, take about a week or so to load everything up, and take them out to the fairgrounds.
Okay,
Where Dickerson would have their large auctions.
sure.
And then we'd get them all sold out. And if there was anything that didn't sell, then we had to load them up and bring it back. The gov deals, those folks come here. They bid online, they come, they pick up and they take.
Easier here then.
so which of those two options would you recommend EBID pursue for
Well,
liquidating an auction?
the gov deals costs us less because you don't pay the auctioneer's percentage. It can be a little cumbersome with the public when they're constantly calling the head mechanic asking every question we've already given them. But if they come in prepared, it's fine. Some of these folks do not come in very well prepared to load the equipment and haul the equipment out. But the Dickersons, from a personal site with my fleet manager, he preferred Dickersons. But like I said, we went to the gov deals because we didn't have to pay that percentage that we paid the auctioneer. The auctioneer can sometimes get your value up, get your sell price a little bit higher. We have had some items through gov deals that did not sell that are on this list to try again. And if they do not sell, for instance, if it's a pickup, we've had other pickups like, and we brought every part up with it we possibly can to keep others going, then it can just really goes to scrap at that point. But it has to be put on an auction to people first. And if they do not buy it, then they dispose of it. That's that problem.
Mr. Byram, as finance director, do you have an opinion on which of these two directions?
I have two, not here, but elsewhere, worked with the Dickersons, and from a finance point, the gov deals is a lot easier because we don't have to worry about chasing the customers down and making sure they pay or any of that sort of thing, or calculating the value, splitting out the percentage for the auctioneer, and it's been easier for us on the gov deals.
And Mr. Franzoy, from your perspective, is trying to encompass the whole picture of EBID's operations in this. Do you have an opinion?
I think that I agree that gov deals are probably less cumbersome. I think pricing is fair. I think I'm kind of approaching a new avenue where there is a lot of exemptions in the procurement code, such as this fleet stuff, that I think could benefit us more going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Franzoy. Mr. Esslinger, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was, one of the ones that initiated going to gov deal, primarily because there's an assorted amount of different products that we have here. Sometimes one year it was all old computers, and, we found that, because of this shortage issues besides fleet and heavy equipment, there are some other, products that we need to remove from our assets. So, the gov deals covers all of those things. Somebody sees it online, they buy a whole power pole wiring. So it's worth good for.
Director Colquitt, does that satisfy your question? Any other questions, Mr. Garage?
Well, that, Karen, of that purchase price, $257.43, what? You have an estimated percentage of what you're wanting to receive?
Well, that's the purchase price. I am not sure how much we would get. Like a couple of years ago, we sold an excavator for 16,000, which was our highest priced item that we sold. Some other ones, we can put in a reserve. And we can say that if it doesn't sell for at least whatever we want, $1,000, then
But of all of that together, do you have a number that you're hoping to get?
No. I personally don't, perhaps Leo would know better, but I don't.
I will note that the newest piece of equipment on here is 20 years old, so.
Well, that's a very good point, and, there's not much. Just kind of keep in mind, if you will, please, that we have kept stuff and have a history of keeping stuff for so long that it's basically worthless when we sell it. It's obsolete.
You're run by farmers, so that's the way it goes.
So, yeah. Everybody in our place.
Thank you. It's pretty much what it meant.
Direct flow.
I make a motion to accept the list excluding the 2009 trailer.
I have a motion on the floor by Director Sloan to approve the disposal list excluding item 0711-0156.
And I missed the trailer.
I need a second on the motion.
second.
A second, Mr. Grimes, Director Colquitt.
I missed the deal on the trailer. Why was the trailer listed and why are we taking it off?
The trailer was listed because of a clerical issue where there were 3 different assets with the same number way back when. And, but this particular one of the 3 is still being used, and that's why it needs to come off.
Oh, okay.
That's a new trailer.
Well, yeah, it was the newest piece of equipment on the list. Other discussion? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right, where does that bring us on our agenda? Do we want to move backwards 1 to item B, Mr. Francois?
Sure, I can probably just discuss all of these procurement contracts, that's right.
Okay,
So the first on the left is our RFP for Water Council, looking, entertain a motion to approve that, go to the RF. Got bid.
Do you have any presentation on that before I open it to discussion on the board?
I do not, other than what is disclosed. and what-
So the RFP is in your board packet. Trust you all have reviewed it. Is there? Director Colquitt, I believe your committee was most involved in this.
Yes, yeah.
Are there any comments you would like to make about it?
I have none. I don't know if Ross might have any, but I have none. And when it comes time to make the motion, I'll make it.
You can make it right now if you'd like.
I like to make a comment.
I do have some comments.
Director Clayshaw.
Just that the committee spent a lot of time with considerable help, Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Denos, going over this and over, trying to get everything right. Cross the Ts, dot the Is, make sure we get everything right. We think we do. Ralph, what do you got?
Director Rosa.
Yeah, I'd also like to recognize Mr. Lutz and Mr. Franzoy for all the work they put in. They put in serious hours into this, so thank you for that.
Yes, indeed, they were very helpful.
I would like to look at the sequence of events on page 17 of the packet or page 8 of the RFP.
We have 17 being definitions, but the sequence of events is on 19, I believe, page 19 of your pack. Oh, no, it is 17. I've got 2 additional pages for notes. Page 17.
Okay. Go to page 10.
So if the RFP is approved today, we have recommended approximately 45 days to allow offers to submit their proposal. The proposal should be robust and they should take time. And we are expecting for Mr. Denos and Mr. Hernandez to do some heavy recruiting as far as getting this RFP onto the desks of the people who want to apply over the course of the next couple of weeks.
And so the submission deadline is 2 p.m. on Monday, August 26th. Is that correct, Mr. Rosa?
That's correct.
So given that that's been highlighted, are there any questions on the sequence of events?
I have a question. Is this going to be, Is this gonna be online? How can potential offerers find this? Will it be online on our website? We're gonna send it directly to people, whatever you do.
Website and newspaper.
Thank you.
And we can,
And we can email them and encourage them to apply, but our experts that we hired will be doing a lot of that labor for us.
Thank you.
Director Roverosa.
Very good. We will then submit the proposals to the evaluation committee. They will choose the finalists, and then the finalists will be requested to give an oral presentation. Then after the oral presentation, the evaluation committee will make their final recommendations, and procurement will fill out the contract, the award, or awards. There could be multiple awards. And the approval by the board is set to occur on 9/20, or I'm sorry, yeah, 9/20. Or potentially the 9/25 board meeting. Let me see.
Right, that's the notice of award is the 25th of September. I believe that's the board meeting that the meeting that the board would approve the awards.
That's correct.
Did you have a comment, Mr. Franklin?
One other comment with this timeline, and obviously we can still approve the contract, was to shorten this timeline to a 30-day versus the 45 it's displayed as. If you had any concern about getting legal counsel in sooner, but it was kind of recommended by everybody that we approach it with 45 days to give us the most time to get the best candidates. So that was just something to bring up as well. If you did want to shorten that, we can definitely tweak that to 30-day time frame.
Any comment from the board on if a shorter time from, a shorter time limit for submission is preferred?
It's only 2 weeks shorter.
I'm not hearing any comment from the board requesting that, so.
Hey, Rafa,
Yes,
you good with 45 days?
I think we should do 45 days.
Back to you, Director Roverosa. Other comments on the RFP?
Yes, I would like to bring to everybody's attention the scoring matrix, which is on page 31 of the packet, 22 of the RFP. And I would like to make one small change here. 4.2.3.1.1 lawyer experience with municipal and state government. I would actually like to scratch that and award, move 5 points to interstate river compact knowledge and 5 points to knowledge and litigation experience before this office of the state engineer. I believe that that line item is redundant given firm experience in municipal and state government. And I believe that the focus really needs to be on water law.
Thank you. So I want to be sure I understand your, the suggestion that you are making, Director Roverosa. So the lawyer experience in municipal and state government, completely strike that and split the points awarded to that to the interstate compact knowledge and litigation experience and the knowledge and litigation experience before the state engineer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We need a motion.
Well, first I would just open it to discussion from the board on that, on thoughts on that. It would make sense to put it in the motion that we make to approve the RFP, that correction.
I support Mr. Rubio's recommendation.
Is there anyone that is concerned with the recommendation from Director Roverosa? All right, I'm not hearing any. Other comments, Director Roverosa?
So the way that the scoring matrix will work is that the evaluation of the offer's submission will be awarded up to 100 points. And then once the evaluation committee selects the finalists, the oral presentation will be awarded up to 50 points, but it's a two-step process.
Thank you.
Besides
So
that, Go ahead.
understands that points awarded based on the proposal, the finalists will be selected. And then those that choose to give an oral presentation, up to 50 points will be awarded to that. And the two scores combined for, selecting the awardees. All right, continue, Director Roverosa.
those are all the comments I have. If there are any questions, I would like to answer them.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Director Roverosa before we entertain a motion? Very good.
I want to make a motion that we change the square matrix as requested by Director Rubirosa
And approve the RFP?
and approve the RFP vote.
Thank you very much. There is a motion on the floor by Director Clay Schultz to correct the scoring matrix as described by Director Roverosa and approve the RFP. Is there a second? Seconded by Director Colquitt. Discussion. I just want to make the general comment that again, to reiterate what other board members have said, I am very grateful for the efforts put in by the committee. By Mr. Daniels, Mr. Hernandez, Mr. Franzoy, and Mr. Lutz. In completing this, I believe that this is the correct process for working through this. It is a lot more work for the board of directors and a lot more work for staff to have to work through the board of directors in creating the RFPs. But I believe that they will more accurately reflect the will of the board, and I'm grateful for all of the extended effort. Any other comments? Discussion? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously, and Madam Secretary, were you able to capture the motion?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Item number D on the list is approval of contract for Libin Underwood Engineering Services and Surveying. The subcontractor on that is Dr. King, and that's for hydrology engineering for EBID. There was only one applicant in that entire RFP process. I will leave it at that.
Thank you very much. And this is our contract for our general water resources engineering. And my understanding was Dr. King's contract that had previously been awarded has been renewed all of the times it could be. So I will mention, I'm pleased that there's more than one name on this contract. So we are more than one engineer deep in being able to get these services. There's always the concern of suddenly, losing our engineer who goes on permanent vacation to then having to scramble to get another one assigned. Questions about the contract?
Are we doing D and E together or is this separate?
So I'm not looking at the agenda. I believe
This
he is the expert, sir, is the expert witness contract.
We're on D right now.
We'll discuss them all separately.
Oh,
So this is for professional services, not the expert contract.
I moved to approve the contract.
I have a motion from Director Sloan to approve the contract,
And second.
seconded by Mr. Garai. Any further discussion? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes unanimously.
Item number E, will be expert witness testimony, for water-related issues. As you guys are well versed in this matter, things will be ramping up potentially here in the next few months. And so we decided to renew that contract for Dr. King Engineering and Associates Incorporated.
And on this one, can we combine, I don't have the agenda right in front of me. I believe this item F is this similar contract for Dr. Carroll. Is that correct? Or is that a different type of contract? It's a different, disregarded it. So we have essentially expert witness contract for Dr. King.
I make a motion to approve the contract.
Director Sloan has made a motion to approve the contract, seconded by Director Clark. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Lutz?
the only comment I would make, just, I know you work with Dr. King, but these are very reasonable rates for an expert witness. I would just make that comment for the legal people.
Thank you very much. I appreciate highlighting that, and I've been grateful for Dr. King's heart in being willing to work with the district. Yeah, they are well under market. Other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Roby Rose, I believe yours was in favor.
In favor.
The motion passes unanimously. Brings us to Dr. Carroll's contract.
So similar, it's kind of expert testimony, but also soil services for us, similar and related to the Kinder Morgan case.
Thank you very much. Bring up the scope of work, make sure I
And that
understand
is
that.
contract renewal.
This is a renewal?
Correct.
Okay, so this is a renewal of a currently existing contract. Okay. Any questions on the contract? Director Sloan?
I'm just curious, for last year, any idea how much money he was used or billed, or, I mean,
I do, we went over that, so I have that model. I'll get back with you on the exact number. I don't have that off the top of my head. However, all of his work is reimbursed under this contract from Kinder Morgan, and so the cost EBID is effectively.
I moved it for the contract.
I have a motion for Director Sloan to approve the contract, seconded by Director Colquitt. Any further discussion?
Mr.
Hearing
President,
none.
I need to correct the record for something.
Thank you very much, Ms. Salpeck. Ms. Salpeck, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is my expert on a number of water quality related issues. This is not actually limited to the Kinder Morgan case. All of the fees that are billed under the Kinder Morgan case are reimbursed to EBID. Fees for the other issues that I have Dr. Carroll work with me on, where, for example, Dr. Fox or Dr. King aren't the lead expert on those matters, those are not billed to Kinder Morgan, and those are not reimbursed to EBID. So there is a slight amount of work that happens outside of the Kinder Morgan case, and that's all water quality related.
Thank you very much for that clarification, Ms. Salpeck. So to reiterate that clarification, Dr. Carroll is our water quality expert, and it is not limited to the specifics of Kinder Morgan, although Kinder Morgan is a significant water quality issue for the district. Other discussion? Thank you for interjecting, Mrs. Salpeck. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Okay. That concludes general administrative. Mr. Francois, Ms. Byram, do you have anything final to cover under there? Thank you very much. That brings us to the manager's update. Mr. Esslinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just for your information, put in article in that came out of the Albuquerque Journal in your board book, for reference to the situations occurring north of us. Certainly, thank you for your meeting pleasure. Again, item B, I certainly hope that board members and possibly on my request, Mr. President, maybe a staff member so that hasn't ever attended this to go. Certainly it's a tour that gives a better understanding for the board as well as staff members as to how the water is generated up in the high in our watershed and moves through the different compact regions.
Do you have a specific staffer in mind?
not at this point. I'm just considering, maybe sending one.
Very good.
And then certainly I understand you may want to go.
Yeah.
But my request is that you give me the flexibility for, developing a travel schedule and for, understanding when we will start and when we will end and the differences of how we get to the, wherever we're gonna start. So I need to know if, between now and the next board meeting, if something comes up, you want me to go ahead and, try to, they're looking for head counts, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And in order to do that, I need a little flexibility.
So, the request for Mr. Esslinger is to approve a staff member to attend this Headwaters tour as well, and to try to get an idea of how many board members we want to authorize to travel on. Feedback from the table.
I'd love to go, but I'm out.
Director Colquitt is unavailable.
I would like to attend.
Director Rosa is a yes.
I'm out on it.
Well, I can go if I got the time.
So,
I don't know until I get there, you know.
so would the board like to approve travel for 4 board members? And we can firm up who's actually available to attend. That keeps us under a quorum. So 4 members and 1 member of staff to attend this, is that? Mr. Esslinger, your thoughts on that?
I believe that would give me sufficient opportunity and flexibility to at least give the Bureau a head count. Because I'm not sure if it's going in a vans, buses, what they're SUVs, I have no clue, but they've emphasized, a head count, and that should satisfy them. Bye.
Very good.
Up to 4.
Up to 4 board members and 1 staffer.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Alfay.
I'm really sorry to interject, but when I was working with the Bureau to get this set up, they were kind of suggesting that it would be a smaller group.
Okay.
They were not anticipating having 5 of us, so we might want to check on that. My understanding was it was more like 2 people, maybe 3.
Thank you very much for that feedback, Ms. Salbeck. So given that,
I can go another year.
would the board like to approve up to 2 board members and 1 staff member? With potentially that being dropped to 1 board member and 1 staff member,
Yes.
or no staff. Thank you very much for that additional piece of information, Ms. Salbeck. Mr. Franzoy.
For actual expenses incurred.
Thank you. I believe I heard a motion from Mr. Clayfield to approve travel for up to 2 board members and 1 staffer for actual expenses incurred for the travel related to the Headwaters tour from Reclamation. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Garai. Madam Secretary, were you able to capture that motion? Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. And Ms. Salpik, thank you for jumping in as necessary. I did not see your hand. I appreciate you jumping in.
Yeah, and I apologize about that. I'm looking through my emails and I believe that is still the number, but we need to contact the Bureau because if other board members want to attend, I have a feeling they will want you to attend.
Okay, we will get that information from the board and get that to Reclamation with the understanding that we want to be accommodating. We don't want to create trouble on this tour. Okay, Mr. Efflinger.
Item C, Mr. President, I just wanted to bring to the attention of the board a discussion of, the consideration of, 2025 New Mexico State lobbyist. We had an under 60 lobbyist contract awarded for a 30-day session. And in contact with our legal counsel as well as with the lobbyists, there's a lot of activities, interim committees, legislative sessions that could start immediately or at least by next month. And I just felt like, I needed to have a board discussion on what you would like to do in the next, you want an RFP, as far as, or longer term contract? Or do you want to continue, with something less? The problem is, an RFP would at least secure you for like 4 years.
So, question is, what is this? What is the desire of the board for securing state lobbyist services? Mr. Franzo, Ms. Byram, let me first turn to you and ask, what do you see as the options? Do we have an option to do to award contracts without a full RFP process? And what would you recommend?
So based on the cost of the first lobbyist, I believe that you still have room left in the existing contract for fiscal year 24. Or calendar year 24, sorry. Then it would be up to kind of securing a lobbyist for 2025.
Does the scope of work in the existing contract permit us to utilize those services outside of the legislative session?
I don't think it does because we only targeted that specific. So actually I correct my statement. That is correct.
Thank you. Do you recommend doing, annual contracts where we receive bids for them, or doing an RFP contract renewals, recognizing that one of those processes is a heavier lift than the other?
I think that's really up to the determination of the board for how involved you want to be with the state lobbyist and what you're looking for services.
Thank you. Ms. Byram, do you have any additional comment?
I agree with you.
Thank you. Mr. Flood?
Someone could refer to it.
Yep, most likely government affairs. So, Mr. Roby Rosa, it has been suggested to refer the consideration of, securing state lobbyist services to the Government Affairs Committee. That's your committee. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. We have a meeting set up for Tuesday, so we can knock it out then.
Very good. So, the item on that is referred to, committee. There will be a committee meeting on Tuesday, which will give us an opportunity to then get that committee report onto the agenda for our July 24th board meeting.
Question, Mr. President,
Mr. Glacial,
is our illustrious leader in sanitary planning a special session?
I don't have any information on that, Mr. Esslinger, but
I haven't heard.
Yes,
oh, is that an affirmative that we're expecting a special session, Mrs. Salpet?
yes, she has called the session and told the Senate that she will not be yielding to their request to not hold the special session. So it is scheduled. They have to be in Santa Fe by noon on like the end of July. Let me look for the dates.
Mr. President.
Mr. Lutz.
It is scheduled later this month. It's noticed largely for public safety issues. I believe there are 5 proposed bills from the governor. And I would echo Mrs. Salopek. If there is some pushback on what's being proposed, but as of when I looked at it yesterday, the governor is, you need to be there later this month.
Very good. So, does that answer your question, Director Glacial?
Unfortunately, yes, I would bear in mind Benjamin Franklin's comment, no man's life, liberty, or property are safe while the legislature's in session.
Thank you, Director Glacial. All right, so we have item 8C, which is discussion of a 2025 New Mexico State lobbyist contract. Also, as Mr. Esslinger pointed out, interim committee meetings that will occur in calendar year 2024. That item has been referred to the Government Affairs Committee for discussion and recommendation to the board.
Mr. President,
Director Placer.
Do we anticipate, Ms. Barncastle, do we anticipate anything in this session that we need to have our lobbyists present for?
So of course, I watch just to make sure that is not the case, and currently it is not the case. The bills that are being pushed back and forth between the governor's office and drafts by the legislature in response have nothing to do with the type of property rights we deal with at EBID, at least at this time. Like Mr. Lutz said, it's solely related to public safety issues. The only thing that might affect us is how they deal with panhandling, which is one of the bills, and private property and public property interests in terms of panhandling and homelessness use. So it begins on the 18th at noon is when the legislature has been called into session, and they expect 3 days. So we will watch, but at this time, no.
Thank you.
Anything else under the manager's update, Mr. Eslinger?
No, sir. Thank you for the direction.
Thank you. That brings us to engineering and maintenance. The first item is the maintenance and projects update. Mr. Barrett.
I have no actual update for you all this morning. We've been giving you your bi-weekly progress report, so I'm mainly here to observe, learn, and answer any questions that y'all may have at this point. Our main focus is just keeping our water, helping our riders keep our water in the system.
any questions for you? Mr. Rubio, you're up.
Yes, sir. Same as I echo, Mr. Barrett, business as usual. We're just working with, maintenance to make sure everything's working smoothly, any breaks, any, outages. And for off-season projects that we got coming up.
Mr. Grant. Leo, since we have a board member that's impacted by our Wasteway 18 pump, could you bring us up to speed on that, please?
Yes, we had the pump rebuilt by Turner Electric, as you know, about 3 weeks ago. During one of the lightning storms the other day, it burned out again. It didn't affect the other pump though. That's what the audit is. So we pulled it, sent it to Turner again. They did confirm that it was burned, but they're under such a workload right now. They're not certain that they're gonna be able to get to it within the next couple of weeks. So we've got 4 other businesses. We've got, that we work with that are out searching for another motor that we can get on there. The ultimate goal is to have that spare motor that was requested on hand. And so we're in the process of that. And so as soon as we can get that in, we'll have it, and then we're going to set up electrician as well as Dave Bolden. We're gonna have Dave Bolden out there this time, along with RT Electric, so I believe we're gonna utilize, and Alex, and they'll be out there with Casey as we install this thing and make sure that our incoming electricity to them doesn't have problems. So that's where we're at.
What size motor are you looking for them?
That's 30 horse.
Leo, I believe you can solve those problems putting a phase monitor on my freezers, for the utility plant. I was having those issues too with voltage. You put a phase monitor, and if your legs aren't all in sequence, it will not let your pump turn back on.
Okay, I'll bring that up to RT Electric.
Save you a lot of money.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I will mention we also have phase monitors on our cold storage and, yeah, it keeps you from running on 2 legs. Thanks. Any other questions or items under the maintenance projects and update? Hearing none, that brings us to permits.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, just need a second to get set up.
Okay. So for June, July, right use licenses, we have a total of 26 licenses to review. There's one new El Paso Electric aerial crossing, and the other 25 are all renewals. 13 of them are El Paso Electric renewals, and 12 are Quest renewals. And renewals being that the existing licenses expired. So they're already, the lines, everything's already in place. They're just renewing the license. That's all. Just so there's no construction with those.
Did you make sure you're screen sharing?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and go over the first one, which is that new El Paso Electric line. Would you like me to run through the 25 renewals?
No.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Is there any opposition to skipping the presentation on the 25 renewals?
No.
Hearing none, please proceed.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gamble.
So the one new license we have here is license number 2024 L055. It's El Paso Electric. And they are to construct, operate, and maintain an aerial electrical line crossing the curved lateral at approximate station 4+75. And this is pretty much their standard crossings, aerial crossings that they usually do. And that is the one new license.
Will you bring up the map, please?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Questions on the one permit presented? Questions on the renewals? My only question on the renewals, are they all now the standard 10-year
Yes.
license?
Yes, sir.
Hearing none, I will accept, hearing no discussion, I will accept a motion on the 26 licenses on today's agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the 26 licenses.
I have a motion from Director Sloan to approve the 26 licenses listed on the agenda.
Oh, second.
Seconded by Director Garai. Any further discussion? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Slow getting back to the agenda. That brings, okay. Director Sloan, has brought to my attention that, Director Rosa would like to move the government affairs report to, the end of our open session agenda. Director Rosa, do you have a comment on that? And would you stop the screen sharing? Director
No,
Rosa.
I don't have any comment on that. I'm fine to move it to the end so we can jump in with the closed session portion of it afterwards.
Very good. So item 10, government affairs report, will be moved to after the suspension and transfer hearings. That brings us to the legal update. Mrs. Solopek, I think you have some good news for us today.
Yes, Mr. President. So first on the list, we have settled a long-standing case. On your agenda, you'll see it is listed as EBID versus Anderson and Swearingen et al. CV number 99-450. That 99 means that it was started in 1999. This case is that old. And so Mr. Lutz sitting there hopefully still has contact with Mr. Anderson, because he is who I will be after next to settle the remaining portion of this case. But today in the boardroom with you are Mr. and Mrs. Swearingen, who we have settled with at this point in time. And in a moment, I will ask if they want to add anything to the presentation. But the settlement agreement is in front of you. It is something that you previously had discussion on in closed session. It's essentially built around where we left off multiple times in the longstanding case, where we essentially reached settlement, but had never had it reduced to writing or signed by all of the parties. over time, we had to update things like the plat. There are several exhibits that are not attached to this document that are essentially additional conveyance mechanisms of property transferring back and forth to clean up the boundaries of this area and clean up the dispute that we've been having. So essentially, this document in front of you would solidify the agreement between the parties. And then what we would do is move forward once the county approves the updated plat with the final signing and approval of each of, well, I guess we wouldn't need approval, but of each of the conveyance documents. Now, I will note for you that this does not need to go through any other state agency for approval at this time. We received our approval already. So this will not have to be approved by any other body other than the Elton Butte Irrigation District Board of Directors. So with that, Mr. President, unless you have specific questions about the settlement, which hopefully we have answered in the past in closed session, the final form is in front of you. And again, this has already been part of a packet that was submitted to the county for approval pursuant to board direction received about 3 months ago.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Alpeg. My only question is, do we happen to have Exhibit 1 available for the board to see this morning on the screen?
No, we don't.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Mrs. Alpeg.
Give me a moment, I can get it up on the screen.
I will give you a moment.
And you're talking about the replat, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, because Exhibit 1 is actually one of the grants of easements. So, let me. This would be the exhibit replat that was submitted to the county. Is this what you're referring to, Mr. President?
It is, and so it is described in writing in the settlement agreement. Being a visual person, the picture is appreciated.
This is an overview of what is happening at the property, but there are a bunch of other conveyance documents and exhibits that are part of the settlement agreement that essentially this plat makes certain things happen and those other conveyances make the rest of it happen.
Thank you, Ms. Alpeg. Questions on the settlement agreement before us from the board? Hearing none.
Yeah, it's
Ms. McClatchy.
not clear to me what happened. Somebody explain it to me.
So Mrs. Solopek, would you give the quick overview of what the replat is describing?
Sure. So one of the things we are doing here is releasing certain portions of property to the Swearingens that we previously claimed as part of the easement for the flood control structure. Those portions are being sort of realigned. This road is being sort of realigned. So it's essentially a property swap of feet here and there and releases of easements and portions of the easement only. So it's a lot. That's why I'm saying there's several different conveyance documents because there's road realignment, there's lot line adjustments, there's feet being given up here and there in exchange for feet gained elsewhere. It's a lot going on, but essentially we are giving back the property we don't need anymore, and we are keeping and clearer in terms of the plat, keeping the property that we still do need.
Thank you. Hearing no other questions from the board, I'd like to recognize the Swearingens. Is there anything you would like to add today?
No, we're good. We're glad that this is close to being finalized. So it's a deal that this property could be a situation that it originally, when they designed the dam, the dam was supposed to be quite a bit higher from what I've seen before. So releasing that property when won't really affect anything, but it may clear up a whole lot of the issues that are in this area. So you guys have property that's due to the east, and it'll open up that property quite a bit, so.
Thank you, Mr. Swearingen. Any other questions from the board? Ms. Salpik, I believe what we need is a motion to approve the settlement agreement as presented. Is that correct?
Yes, with a delegation of authority to the board president and vice president to sign all conveyance documents, including the settlement agreement itself.
So that is what we are looking for today. What is the will of the board?
Motion so made.
I have a motion from Mr. Clayshall to approve the settlement agreement and to delegate signatory authority to the board president and vice president for the transaction documents. Seconded by Director Tharp. Ms. Salpik, is that motion sufficient?
Yes.
Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all for your patience and continued cooperation. All right, back to you, Mrs. Salpik, for the remainder of the legal update.
All right, and so the legislative update we sort of already dove into. At this point, what we can do is go through essentially the list that I have that I bring to the board each year regarding the legislative issues we will be watching in the interim and going into the not special, but main session in 2025. So we start in about May or June, immediately after the legislative season where we're actively working. We start watching what the legislative issues will be for the next year. And we keep an eye on sort of the list as it builds. Around August is when we really start putting our talking points on paper, unless we are forced to do that sooner due to interim committee meetings. This year, we've I say we, meaning me and the mouse in my pocket, have watched the interim committees sort of form and get going, but they are waiting to finish the special session before we actually have any of the issues called up that will affect us. The first interim committee hearing that will be affecting us is going to be in Socorro in a few weeks. And so that is something that we will likely be brought into for the purposes of giving the legislature an update on Texas versus New Mexico and general Lower Rio Grande issues. So we'll keep an eye on whether that actually gets scheduled and what we're asked to do by the committee at that point in time. There are also legislative finance committee activities that we expect will get going fairly quickly, immediately following the special session. And so by the end of July, again, on that one. So the issues that we have flagged internally that we either have been watching for a number of years already, or that we need to start paying attention to and preparing some sort of game plan for are as follows, and there are 15 of them. The first is additional funding for infrastructure and federal match. The second is state water planning and regional water planning. The third is surface water quality permitting. The fourth is brackish water, produced water reuse, and interbasin transfers. Number 5 is Rio Grande holistic river management and essentially the current attacks on agriculture by other sectors being rolled into that holistic management conversation. The 6th is Rio Grande Trail Commission activities. 7 is citizen science within state agencies and the initiative being pushed by the legislature to incorporate more citizen science within agency decision making. The low flow conveyance channel is number 8. Number 9 is the green amendment. That is something that comes before the legislature every year for the last few years. Number 10 is PFAS regulation and passive receiver liability. 11 is flood control and sediment control. 12 is groundwater management and aquifer characterization. 13 is fallowing programs. 14, Rio Grande Waves activity. This is a new group of environmental groups in the Lower Rio Grande seeking a quote seat at the table. And then number 15 is something that has showed up this year on our legislative agendas in multiple places. And it is farmer and rancher perspectives on water. And a little background there is that every year when the irrigation districts or conservancy districts show up to testify before the legislature, there is always a handful of legislators, including our very own Senator Cervantes, who would like to hear more from the farmers themselves. They understand and appreciate the roles that, say, for example, Gary and I play, or Mr. Kasuga, or even Mr. Hernandez out of CID. They don't necessarily want to hear solely from us, though. They want to hear more from the actual producers. So that has finally showed up on their agendas for this year. So those are the 15 items that I am preparing for. And my request to the board today in open session is, are there any other legislative initiatives you'd like for me to tap into and focus on? And then, of course, as a privileged matter, we will discuss our litigation strategy and how that factors into our legislative strategy later today in closed session.
Thank you, Ms. Salpeck. I appreciate the comprehensive list. For the record, Madam Secretary, I assume that you will find a way to get those accurately reported in the minutes. Thank you. Are there legislative priorities that Mrs. Salpeck did not cover that the board wants to have as a highlighted position for EBID?
Mr. President,
Mr. Roby Rosa.
I believe that we need to address this in the Government Affairs Committee as well.
Very good. Is there anything today that the board would like to bring up, and then we will refer it to committee for further discussion and advisement to our legislative team? Hearing none, we will also refer to the Government Affairs Committee a discussion on legislative priorities not included in Ms. Salpeck's current comprehensive list. Madam Secretary, if you would, between now and Monday, get the current list that Ms. Salpeck had to the Government Affairs Committee Chair. Thank you.
Mr. President, I have done
Ms.
that.
Salpeck.
I've already sent this list to Director Roby Rosa. The reason for bringing it before the board today is because I have a limited amount of time before I have to have a draft of everything in front of you guys for approval before this really hits the street. So I am already working on this, and the list it went out last week. So I do want to note that he has that already. And then I want to also say to the rest of the board members who haven't reached out to me, many of you have, please reach out if you have specific issues.
Thank you very much, Ms. Salpeck. And, you know, I sit on the Government Affairs Committee. Your list was very comprehensive. It is already, you know, it has exceeded the things I could possibly think of. That said, it will be the task of the Government Affairs Committee to ensure that we haven't missed something, recognizing that time is of the essence. If the sooner we're coming up with these, the more opportunities Ms. Salpeck and our legislative team has to prepare, with the idea that Tuesday is already pretty late. Perhaps too late. So with that, I'm not hearing anything that somebody has thought of that was not included in the list. And I'm still not hearing that. So with that, back to you, Mrs. Salpeck. I believe there was one more item on your agenda.
There is, Mr. President. It is not my item though, so I'll turn it over to Gary.
Mr. Edlinger.
Yes, sir. I put in your packet the July monthly briefing from the Family Farm Alliance, and it is very comprehensive in detail as to the things going on in Washington, as well as with the Bureau, as well as across the West. And I certainly hope and urge you to read that. It's got information about the newly appointed Deputy Secretary of the Bureau of Reclamation, Roque Sanchez. He's from New Mexico. And he was in the Bureau of Reclamation office in Albuquerque. So, that's just one of the highlights, but certainly you can, understand the importance of this briefing, because it affects farmers westwide, whether we're talking endangered species, clean water, water quality. So all of those issues are pretty much laid out in that briefing, and I just urge the board to take time to read that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So the Family Farm Alliance briefing is in your packet. And I concur with Mr. Esslinger. It helps to keep you aware of what is happening in the West. With that, we've finished the open session legal updates. That brings us to the HR safety update, Mr. Esslinger.
Yes, sir. It's again back in the back of your packet, and we're currently employee count at 79. That includes 2 full-time temporary employees who are working very well at this point in those departments. We're still looking for a service mechanic. That's a difficult one to find, that meets the type of requirements we need with the type of equipment that we are currently utilizing. Years of service, we have 4 employees over 30 years. 21 to 30 years, we have 13 employees. 10 to 20 years, we have 14 employees. And under 10 years, we have 48 employees, so it's pretty much split. We're recognizing in July, 25 years of service by Albert Barunda. Mike Ramos has 5 years, and Nick Carrero has 5 years. Here's a service in July and in our finance department up front. Marty Lucero's been with us 9 years. Karen's been with us 3. We have folks in our maintenance department. They've been with David Hernandez, 31 years. Chris Hokie, 29 years. Luke Lara from the South area, 24 years. And Dominic Rivera, 1 year. So we're doing well, and we have 3 employees under intermittent FMLA and 1 employee under disability at this time. So that is it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Esslinger. Any questions on the HR safety update? Hearing none, that brings us to the suspension and transfer hearing.
Real quick, sorry,
Mr. Coldplay.
right now, we're looking for a service mechanic, is that right?
Yes.
How do you all advertise, or how's the word put out on that?
Website, we go through,
Like Indeed and all that?
I can
Yeah.
answer that.
Mr. Franzoy.
So with our new HR software, historically, we used to post it on our website. We had our website portal, so it's online, but not everybody knows to go to EBID's website, look for jobs.
Yes.
Now we do one posting, it goes to Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn,
All the big
our
ones.
website, all the big ones. We actually just implemented that full outreach program Friday. We're still in implementation for our HR program. We're really exceeding hits, whereas we would get maybe 1 application, we're getting about 10 times that now. A lot of views from those major sites you can imagine. And about 20% apply rate so far for positions. That's really good.
How long have we been looking for that service mechanic?
We just opened it up last week.
Oh, so it'll probably go fast, get filled fast.
We already have, I think, 7 applications for that.
Oh, wow.
Don't quote me on that, maybe 4 to 7.
But still some, yeah.
Yeah.
Leo, do you want to address that as well?
That's correct. It's, yeah, our service mechanic position has been a tough one to fill. We've when you go without one, you go without one for a very long time. It's not something that you just got people coming in, jumping in on. So,
Why is that?
it's a dirty job.
Okay.
People don't want to do dirty jobs anymore. It is a service mechanic. We have a service truck. They go out in the field, they change the oil, they grease, and do all the dirty work. That's a tough
I think
thing.
there's also an additional competitive advantage or competitors have over us for hiring that position as well.
Yes, and it requires CDL as well as hazmat.
Well, that makes sense.
Any additional questions, Mr. Colville?
No, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Now we will move to the suspension and transfer hearing. Carl.
Good morning.
Oh, thank you. And it's Smith to read. I call to order the board to sit as the board to hear suspension and transfer applications. The board is convened to act upon applications by landowners in the district to transfer water rights pertinent to lands within the district, which are not suitable for irrigation or capable of being properly irrigated, to other lands within the district. These applications are filed under section 73-13-4 of the New Mexico statutes. This board will decide if, within their judgment, the other lands within the district may be profitably and advantageously irrigated. The applicants are identified as listed on Exhibit A. The applicants were required to publish notice in any newspaper published within Doña County of EBID taking action to consider a resolution allowing the transfer. The publication should have listed the time and place of this meeting, listed the action to be taken by this board, listed a description of the move to and move from land, and listed the reason for the requested transfer. Does staff have a copy of the notice of publication?
Yes, sir, we do.
Were all of the required points in the publication?
Yes, sir.
Was the last publication date made prior to this hearing?
Yes, sir, it was.
We will now proceed with presentation by staff. After that, the board members can ask questions of staff.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have a total of 12 voluntary suspensions for a total of 17.62 for suspension. And engineering recommends, or staff recommends approval on all of them.
Are there any questions from the board on staff's presentation?
No question.
Mr. Clayton?
So there's no move to on this. Where's it going?
It is going into the EBID pool.
Okay, so these are people they're tired of paying their assessment, the flat raters, what I see.
Yes, sir.
I see you, Mr. Saltek. Please continue, Mr. Clayton.
Tired of paying their assessment, and they said, just give up the water.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Saltek.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Board Member Clayshult, these water rights don't go to a physical property at this point in time. They go into a pool that's held by EBID, and we've done a number of things with that pool, mostly and almost completely and solely in settlement discussions since about 2018 when this pool was started. And so that's where they are going, but not to actual property, like if you were transferring to a move to parcel in a normal water rights transfer. These are going into essentially the coffers of EBID for purposes of settlement discussions. And I should just say the board is free to change that at any point in time, but that has not been the direction based on settlement conferences.
Thank you.
So in Mr. Clayshult's program, or excuse me, in Mr. Clayshult's question, that they are going into the ether. They are going into the pool of water in EBID, which is held for disposal at the discretion of this board. The board has suspended the sale of those water rights to potential EBID members at this time.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? At this time, the board will take evidence and testimony from the applicants or their representatives or any person who are here to protest the applications. We will proceed with any presentation by the applicants. After that, the board members and EBID staff can ask questions of the applicants. Would the applicants or their representatives introduce themselves? Hearing none, are there any protestants who wish to speak? If so, please identify yourselves for the record. Madam Secretary, I do not believe we have anybody online that would fit that description.
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. Hearing none, are there any other comments from the board? The chair will now entertain a motion to have a resolution to approve or disapprove the applications.
I make a motion
I have a motion from Mr. Colquitt
to move to transfer.
to approve the resolution for transfer, seconded by Mr. Sloan. For the record, that is resolution 2024-S&T-07. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Mr. Serrano.
Mr. President, a question. What's the total number of water rights in the pool?
Let me resolve this, and I will get to that question if I may. I will ask that the resolution be formalized as called for by section 73-13-5 of the New Mexico statutes, and that the secretary of the board immediately certify and file with the state engineer a true copy of the resolution and action of the board. If there are any protestants who disagree with the action of the board, you may appeal this decision directly to the district court as provided under section 73-13-4 of the New Mexico statutes. I believe Mr. Serrano had a question of the board sitting and suspension transfer hearings of what the total pool is of voluntarily and involuntarily suspended water rights.
I do not know that at this time.
Mr. Esslinger, do you have an approximate answer for that question?
Not at this time, I can get it.
Mrs. Salbeck, do you happen to have an approximate answer for that question?
Yes, Mr. President, last time I looked, it was around 450 acres.
Thank you. And so that's an estimate as of today, Mr. Serrano. Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the board sitting to hear the applications.
So made.
I have a motion by Mr. Sloan, seconded by Mr. Garai to adjourn the board sitting to hear suspension and transfer applications. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
That brings us to the Government Affairs Committee report. Mr. Rovirosa.
Thank you, Mr. President. So there are a few things that we need to finalize with regard to the interview questions and the procedures that we're going to follow in the interview. The first item here, yes.
I will mention, so the board has presented, has in front of them the questions for the interview. Those are confidential. You have them in front of you. Please do not ask specific questions about the questions in front of you. They are confidential. But with that, please continue, Mr. Rovirosa.
Very good. So the first question is, would the board like to publish these questions to all candidates before the interview? Mr. Pauly has recommended that we do so, especially because we are limiting the time to less than an hour, which he also recommends either increasing or removing limitations altogether. So first question is, do we want to make the questions public to the candidates in the first round of interviews beforehand?
Mr. Copeland?
Rafa, what would be the benefit in Chris Polly's eyes to doing that, or the reason for that?
The benefit to giving them the questions would be so that they could think about their answers and give their best answer during the short amount of time that we are giving them to answer our questions. Right now, we are considering between 8 and 10 questions. If we give them 45 minutes, that's between 4.5 minutes and 5.5 minutes to answer the questions. That's not very.
What do you think? Do you think we should publish it, or?
Oh, I'd like
Surprise
to
me.
discuss it. I would like to discuss it. I'm fine with either.
Other comments? Mr. Garai?
I believe you should, leave them all the questions, that way they're well prepared, know what we're expecting of them, and see what they respond with.
Thank you, Mr. Garai.
Yeah, Mr. Polly has been through this process once before. He's probably seen it more than once. You're gonna kind of rely on his judgment on this. And we're gonna get I think, a chance to kind of put him on the spot, and the finalists, and they give an oral presentation. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Clayton. So I concur with presenting the questions to the applicants prior to the interview process. In not doing that, what you gain is how well they think on their feet for a rapid reply. There is value in understanding that. That's probably not the typical place that the manager will be. The manager usually will have time to think out how to approach a given problem. Understanding their philosophy behind the question, I think, is more informative to the board in trying to decide who we are going to select to lead the district for the next decade. So I agree with giving the questions to the applicants ahead of the interview. Other comments?
We may want to give them a limited amount of time. I mean, in other words, I don't think we want to give them 2 or 3 weeks to think about it. Maybe a week or 3 or 4 days or something, not a long stretch of time.
So there was a comment from Mr. Clayton, and I see a nodding head from Mr. Garai to give them a limited amount of time to consider the questions, and the suggestion was a week. Mr. Sloan?
Well, right now, we're at 3 weeks today, so it's from the time of the interview.
Is there any opposition to releasing the questions to the applicants a week ahead of the interviews? I'm not just President. Oh, Mr. Clayton.
Should we, when we give these questions, do we need to put something in there that says these are remain confidential, things like that?
Well, at that point, all the applicants have them, so I don't think they're
They
confidential.
do, but I don't think we want them going out in the general public, do we? That's a question.
I'm not sure that it matters. I'd be interested in what the board thinks on that. Mr. Clayton, Mr. Colquitt.
I've never done this before, but one thing that I would be leery of releasing these questions is you're getting the scripted answer you want to hear.
I'm giving the scripted answer that they're going to give.
But I mean, because generally, I mean, you read these, you know how to answer them. And if you have time to know how to answer them, I mean, you might just get the answer you want to hear as a board.
Could I comment on
Mr.
that?
Frangela.
I kind of agree with PK here. I mean, reading through these in front of us, I don't think they're complex questions enough to where you need lead time on those. You should be able to answer those up front.
You don't want to go on ChatGPT.
Yeah, AI. Yeah, so I mean, not to be.
The complexity of these questions doesn't warrant a need for prep time. You should be able to land on your feet and answer these.
I don't want to go against the grain, but I don't want a scripted answer.
You may go against the grain.
Okay, what the hell? I'm going against the grain.
So I believe that the Colquitt opposes releasing the question ahead of
I
time.
do.
Mr. Plum.
I did oppose it before. I've changed my mind. I think they should have it beforehand, and partly because of the limited time we're gonna have for this interview. You gotta think about the amount of time
that they're gonna have to try to like maybe think about these.
Pros and
Respond.
Okay.
So I think if they're a little more prepared, maybe the shorter period of time we have, we get better information. So I was with you on that as far as opposing it, but now I've changed my mind.
What if we give it to them the day before?
I'll say give them 1 day. or
Just
two.
one day?
Well, that's debatable, but I mean,
They may not get it in 1 day.
I think ahead of time I've changed my mind.
Did you? Okay. Well, hell's bells.
Mr. Gerard?
And I believe that's why we made the oral presentation, that they will not have no answers, questions. That's where we'll separate them from.
Go in blind.
scripted- Yeah, scripted, lines.
Yeah, we'll see how they think on the 3-year-olds.
So I've heard concerns from Mr. Colquitt. I believe that we have consent from the remainder of the board to release the questions to the candidates approximately a week ahead of time.
I'm with that we do that.
Okay, so there's on approving, I guess it's a question, not a recommendation. On the first question, Mr. Rosa, I believe the board has said, release the questions a week ahead of time to the applicants.
Very good. Question 2. Mr. Pauly recommends more than 45 minutes be given to interview each candidate. Given the number of questions, it will be hard for them to fit their answers in, but if we are going to give them ahead of time, then they should be able to write a very information dense response to our questions within the allotted amount of time. So I am in favor of keeping it to an hour per person, and with the goal of finishing the interview in 50 minutes with 10 minutes in between each interview.
Did Mr. Polly have a recommendation on how much time?
Unlimited.
A little concerned with Mr. Pauly's recommendation there, although I appreciate it. I appreciate having his recommendation very much. My general concern will be in the interview fatigue of the board and being able to give the same level of attention to the last applicant that we give to the first, if we're extending out into the 7 or 8 hour period for hearing interviews. I think an hour is sufficient for the initial interview. We can be more flexible in the second interview for the finalists. So with the general guidance of be prepared to answer the questions within 45 minutes with the expectation that we're not going to cut them off hard, but we're hoping to be done within the hour. That feels appropriate for Mr. Placial.
How many people are we gonna be interviewing ballpark?
We're expecting it to be 5.
5? Are we gonna take like a few minutes between each person for us to collect our marbles?
That is the goal, in having it be 45 minutes, as Mr. Rosa said, having 10 minutes between candidates for us to collect our marbles.
I don't know, I mean, I personally, I realize this makes the schedule a little harder. Give them an hour to talk and then take 15 minutes to, between each one.
So there's a suggestion to give them an hour to talk and schedule the interviews an hour and 15 minutes apart. Thoughts on that suggestion? So let's
If
see.
we think that 10 minutes more is going to give them a better opportunity to show us who they are, then I think that's fine, but no more than that.
So including a time to eat. 5, 6, that's pushing us out somewhere in the 7 to 7.5 hours that we will be interviewing candidates. Mr. Sloan.
I'd like to keep it the way we have it with the 45 minutes and you give them that, we have an hour slotted, so if a guy does go a little bit over, we have a little buffer. And then we need to probably take an hour for lunch, because we don't want to be eating lunch while these people are giving their interviews. So I think we'll still gonna be we'll still be pretty late in the afternoon, even at 45 minutes, so.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Other thoughts? I'm leaning towards Mr. Sloan. If fatigue's a real issue, I expect to be intensely paying attention to these candidates during their 45 minutes. That's a long day of intense focus.
I agree with that comment, because what Randy said later on, you can do your extensive and your, you know, your ad hoc kind of idea what's gonna happen later, but they get their questions early and they answer them, John, I think within that 45 minutes. You'll probably have a pretty good idea which ones will be the ones that you're gonna probably bring back. I mean, that's just my thing. I agree with you.
All right. So I will just poll the board of where you're at right now. We have two suggestions. One of them is 45 minutes and one of them is an hour for the candidate, with expecting 15 minutes between each interview. Mr. Colquitt, where do you fall in that?
I'll do an hour.
Mr. Clayshall?
There's no easy answer, but for the hour.
Mr. Sloan, I've gotten your answer on what's changed. Mr. Tharp?
45 minutes.
45.
Mr. I'm also at 45. And Mr. Rovirosa, where do you fall on that?
45.
So it is the majority opinion of the board that 45 minutes is the appropriate length of time. Is there any significant opposition to that? Hearing none, I believe the answer to your question number 2 is 45 minutes with 15 minutes in between, and there can be some slack in that.
Very good. Third question is, which staff members do we want to invite? And
so
we had previously discussed inviting department heads. There are 9 people that would fall into that category. Gary, can you please list everybody off that would fall in that category?
So before we get to that, I heard an immediate comment from Mr. Glacial that that was too many. And that's getting to an interview committee that is pushing 20 people when we include the EBID member components of the Government Affairs Committee. That is a very large panel involved in the interview process and the discussion. That said, Mr. Rovirosa asked to have the nine individuals listed. Mr. Esslinger, can you do that?
Yeah, I've had some discussions with Mr. Polly. He's suggesting that the candidates meet with the staff separately in a concurrent fashion of maybe 30 minutes. So they would come in, meet with them, then come in for their interview before the board. That gives the staff an opportunity to meet the candidate up front. They would then recommend from the 5 to, and it would just kind of go in the same day, but it would just be an opportunity for them to have time alone with the candidate. That was the suggestion by Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Esslinger. So that suggestion is to have those interview questions being asked consecutively, meaning they finish with the board and the EBID members, and then they move to a staff interview. Previously, the board has discussed that, and the board was interested in hearing their answers to staff's questions. What are the thoughts of the board on Mr. Pauly's recommendation to Mr. Esslinger? How do we wish to proceed? Let's start with Mr. Rovirosa. You have a comment on that?
Yes, I believe we'd already discussed that and agreed that we were going to do everything together. If we want to bring that up again, that's fine. We can rediscuss it.
I concur with Mr. Rovirosa that we have discussed it previously. Mr. Franco?
I think that we can achieve both and kind of meet in the middle, not having a big room filled with everybody, a lot of eyes on you. We could do it virtually like this, staff can attend virtually. I'm responsible for building all the questions for staff, and I can direct staff's questions at the candidates.
So you're saying all the step, well, or whatever,
Staff.
chosen staff will be on Zoom,
Correct.
the rest here in Skin.
And I will answer their questions for them.
That bumps up against the 45 minutes pretty hard.
Yeah, that could be tricky.
And I was assigned to do 10 questions from staff.
10.
we've also discussed that, and we agreed that Mr. Pauly was going to ask all of the questions, and we were going to limit all of the questions to 10.
That's fine.
So do we want to change that?
That is the question. And if we're going to change it, this is the time to do it. Mr. Sloan,
I think that if Joe, if you guys come up with some questions, I think that before now in the interview process, we can basically maybe take like 2 of those questions and put them into our 8 to 10 questions.
I agree with, Director Sloan's comment there, to integrate staff's questions into the questions from the board. Yeah, in the idea that, you know, what are the 2 most important things that staff would like to ask?
No mileage shorter, I'll just do 2 really important questions. So whatever you guys want, but I think the virtual thing's a good idea.
So I also think that the virtual thing's a good idea. My question really would be to staff, is that a sufficient, participation in the process to inform you? We're going to bring you in and ask you to participate in deliberation. Is that sufficient participation to be able to effectively participate in deliberation? Mr. Barrett, looked like you might be.
I'm
not to become spot.
thrilled y'all are thinking of this. I mean, when it comes to this, quite honestly, I mean, I do my job as I'm told, and I've never been in a position where I'm looking to see who that boss is gonna be. So, I think it's very nice of y'all to allow that. We can sit down with Joe and put that together and listen in. I think that's great. We appreciate it.
Let me ask Leo, I think you watching that process happen, just like all the rest of them, I really like the fact that they're all looking at it. If there's something that pops out in those questions or pops out with that person, and it usually does within that much time, within 45 minutes, then it, like you say, just so they have the feedback, the deliberation back before they go to that final 2. I think I would be very interested in what your take would be. I know what I heard, but what did you know what I mean? People like you are out there every day. I think there will be things that you will hear in that interview that will give you an idea of who you might want to work with, because you're going to be working with them. We set policy, but you work with them every day. You know, that's a pretty big jump.
We appreciate
Pretty big
that.
jump. Yeah.
We appreciate
We
it.
want to just have the staff have a meeting after all this and discuss it among themselves and come up with the 2 finalists. Is that, do you understand what I'm saying? Not with us around and not with us and not with us around.
I do understand what you're saying. It had, in my understanding from the last time the board discussed this, is that they wanted staff to directly participate in our deliberations. It would be fine if they discussed amongst themselves before joining us, but that our input from them was more than just a list of 2 names. Mr. Sloan.
My request would be that the staff be, here in the building. So they could, watch virtually, but be here in the building. So like you're saying, if you come in after the interview process, we could discuss it with staff. And I don't know that I want staff to necessarily give us their candidates, because I don't know if that's a good idea. If we have different candidates, I don't know if it's better off if they just give their opinions and then we just.
I concur with essentially what Mr. Sloan is suggesting there. Just trying to mesh in their list of candidates. That's not kind of the level of input I'm looking for. I'm looking for what they see as opportunities and what they see as concerns.
Highlights.
Yeah, and I do like the idea of having staff together in this building in a central location so that
We'll be in a small conference room.
in the 15 minutes between, that they're able to discuss amongst themselves, what they thought of the candidates. Any concern with that process? Any alternative ideas to that process? So I believe what I'm hearing is to have all 9 department heads participate, for them to observe the interviews in this building virtually, and then to integrate them into deliberation for the selection of the finalists.
So we'll deliberate
after interviewing everybody.
That's correct.
Boys, we in for a long day.
You wouldn't an hour.
Man, I haven't seen them.
Mr. Roby Rosa, do you have any questions on how the board has discussed that?
No, those answered all of my questions.
Thank you very much. With that, I believe that concludes the open session portion of our agenda. I will mention that there is a continued part of this committee's presentation that is listed on our closed session agenda. I will simply highlight that for the record. So it's 14G, discussion of interview procedures and questions is listed on our closed session agenda. Are there any other items for the open session portion of our meeting? Hearing none. Is food here? Food is not here yet. So at the board's discretion, we can recess until we finish lunch, or we can move straight into closed session. What is the will of the board?
Straight into closed session.
I have a motion for Mr. Colquitt to go into closed session to discuss the items listed on the agenda.
Second.
Seconded by Director Sloan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are in closed session. Thank you everyone for attending.
Okay. The only matters that were discussed in closed session were the items identified in the motion to go into closed session. I need a motion to adjourn.
So made. Second, whatever.
All those in favor? Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Let me know.
Oh, that was for Rafa. He's supposed to hit the gavel.
Does that go with him? And that his own personal?
Okay,
No,
please-
I
Please,
told myself.
please pause the recording and then have Naomi